I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. This episode is brought to you by John Barnett. He is a realtor and he represents Dallas proper. So if you're looking to buy or sell a house in Dallas proper, then click on the logo link and it'll take you to his contact page. Tell him that you heard about him on Fascination Street. John has been one of my best friends for over a decade. He's a super good dude and he'll treat you right. This episode is also sponsored by Pure Vitamin Club's Sublingual B12 tablets, which is the only sublingual B12 supplement that doesn't contain binders and fillers and delivers 2,000 micrograms of the B12 form nature intended directly to where it's needed by dissolving tastelessly under your tongue. Everyone needs B12. It's an essential water-soluble nutrient that your body can't make on its own. B12 gives a boost of energy to vegans, active people, people over 65, anybody who is experiencing low energy or fatigue, and anybody who experiences mood swings or is depressed. Click on the photo link on the home page or on the support the show page at fascinationstreetpod.com. Hey guys, this episode is Matt Motorator DeAndrea. He is Adam Carolla's co-host on CarCast, among other things. In this episode, we learn about how Matt got into cars, how he got to California, and we get some really tasty behind-the-scenes Adam Carolla stories. We get the story of the Paul Newman Porsche auction and how the Carolla team stuffs Adam's giant ass into the Newman's tiny race cars. Enjoy, guys.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Matt DeAndrea.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the show. Welcome
How are
to
you?
Fascination Street. I'm great. Thank you again for agreeing to do this with me. I know you're a busy guy.
Thanks for having me.
So you're super into cars.
I am.
You're super into racing, and you're into rebuilding and fixing up and just beautiful cars. How did you get into all that?
You know, I think I think the story of a car guy, there's all pretty much the same. You know, like you just kind of grew up with it. I don't think there's a lot of car guys that are like 35 and be like, hey, have you heard of this car thing? These are pretty cool.
Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Arizona, grew up in Arizona and Florida, moved around a lot in Arizona and Florida and California.
Okay.
But most of the car stuff, like as you got older, you're a teenager, you know, it was like 14, 15, just kind of, you know, working on a 65 Mustang with my brother.
So was that
and we were in
Arizona?
Florida at the time.
Okay.
And in South Florida, and in the early 90s.
Okay.
You know, the car scene down there was a little like Fast and Furious 1. You know, there was like a lot of street racing, but not like, we weren't jumping cars from building to building and racing against submarines or anything like that. Like that wasn't until years later.
Yeah. Y'all didn't start doing that until very recently.
No, but the idea of like lining up the cars like an industrial park, and everybody's kind of like shining their lights on the street, and people line up and do some street racing.
Really?
It was that. Yeah.
Really?
That was like a real thing.
Yeah, in San Antonio, there's not that. I mean, San Antonio's not really a car town except for, is it Frank Beard from ZZ Top that's got a huge collection of cars?
Oh, Billy Gibbons.
Billy, yeah.
Yeah, Billy Gibbons.
He's got a big collection.
He's a
down
good
there
dude.
in San Antonio, but other than that, it's not really a car town. I don't
Billy
think.
Gibbons has a car collection out here as well. He's a friend. He's been on the podcast a couple times in my show.
What's your show?
I do a show called CarCast with Adam Carolla.
Okay.
And I do another one called Shift and Steer.
Shift and Steer.
That one I do with a guy named Brad Fanshaw, who owns Bond Speed Wheels.
Okay.
And his business partner is Michael Anthony from Van Halen and Chickenfoot and the
really?
Circle. And
He's a bass player, right?
he's the bass player.
Cool. Chickenfoot. That's such a good name.
And our third co-host on Shift and Steer is Aaron Hagar, who's Sammy Hagar's son,
Got you.
who's super into like rat rods and hot rods and
Did you
stuff.
say rat rods?
Yeah.
What's that?
A rat rod, I guess the easiest way to explain it would be like a rat rod is a hot rod built out of garbage.
Oh, so like those races where it's like you can race anything you want, but it can't be worth more than $500.
Not exactly, because those are like like Lemons races instead of like Le Mans. It's
Right.
Lemons. What a rat rod is more like, you're going to build a hot rod like a roadster or a little coupe or something, but you'll see them where there's just not a lot of attention put into like paint and bodywork. So there's a lot of rust and sort of very natural looking things of patina. Like Aaron Hagar has a really cool hot rod that he calls Red Voodoo. And Red Voodoo, like the interior are like some old like bomber seats from like an aircraft junkyard, you know, and then the headliner is, instead of a regular headliner, it's just all old photos, you know, that he just sort of collaged together.
All right.
And then it's got like a little bed in the back, like a pickup truck bed.
Okay.
But the rails on the bed are, each side is a blade from like a propeller on an airplane, right?
That
So
sounds
there's
so
like
cool.
a propeller on each side, and that's kind of like the bed rails of it, and just cool stuff like that, where you
sounds
take
awesome.
you take all kinds of stuff that you have, like, you know, like somebody might like patch a floor or something, that sheet metal, and you need like, I don't know, like a 8 by 10
use
piece
a
of
stop
sheet metal,
sign or
and they'll
something?
use a stop sign or a
Okay.
license plate or something like that. You know, there's a point where you still want to make it cool and you want to make it safe.
Right.
But the idea is to keep this patina and kind of natural looking.
So when you make a car like that, do you just start like Frankenstein and just pull parts everywhere, or do you start with a car and then modify it?
You know, a lot of guys kind of just start with maybe like a frame and a piece of bodywork, you know, like a cab or a hood or a grill, and they kind of build around that. It really kind of depends. Now, a guy like Aaron might have an idea for this thing in his head, and he's such an amazing artist that he might sketch it up and come up with some ideas and go, oh, I want to use a propeller blade here, and I want to use, you know, the grill from a different type of car, and, you know, like if I have a 1948 something or other, I want to use a grill from a 30 something, you know, to give it a little bit kind of look. So, you know, some are pieced together kind of piecemeal, and some actually have a little bit of strategy behind it, but that's kind of what the rat rod is. And
Gotcha.
it's not my focus, but
Sure.
that's why Aaron's great to be on the show.
So that's a huge. Is there?
It's a big thing.
It
It's
is
been
a big
around for a
thing?
long time. There's guys that
cool.
love it. There's guys that drag race rat rods on the beach and all kinds of stuff.
That sounds awesome. You know, I was thinking about it, and I said San Antonio's not really a car town, but I live just outside of San Antonio in a small town called Bernie. For about 8 months when it's not winter, every other week, and there's this little, it's called Soda Pops. It's like this little 50s style burger stand kind of thing in this little town, and like every other week they have the people who own that also own a garage that fixes up cars, you know, that makes them, soups them up and whatever, makes them
Sure.
all badass. You know, they primarily focus on older cars, like, you know, the 20s and the 30s, like just the old, you know, like Grease, those kind of cars.
Yeah, like a lot of hot rod stuff.
Right. So like every other week they have a hot rod night, and like they shut the streets down in the town, and it's just a shitload of really cool cars. But it's everything from, like, you know, Deuce coupes to whatever that Ford. It's like I guess a fairly new. It looks like a race car.
But in the muscle car era, like in the 60s era.
Well, no, but like this one that I'm talking about is like probably 2005 or 2006 or something.
Okay.
It's the whatever.
Like a Ford GT.
Yeah,
supercar.
that's it. That's
yeah.
the GT where it's in the Gulf livery and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a one or two of those shows. I mean, there's Ferraris.
See, but you knew
and shit.
Gulf livery, you are a car guy.
Well, I'm not
There
really
it
a car
is.
guy. I just pay attention a little bit when Adam talks. And
Yeah.
So I kind of pick it up, and it's just trying to drop in the lingo so that I look cool.
That's right. So you listen to a lot of Adam Carolla show, and he forces you to learn about cars
does.
on some level.
Yeah, he kind of does. So
For a guy that loves cars and does the Adam Carolla show so much, he never talks about CarCast. He just kind of repeats some of the shit we say on
He
CarCast.
really doesn't
You know what I'm
talk
saying?
about
Like, why
CarCast.
doesn't he say, "Hey, man, for more information, you should listen to my other podcast"?
yeah, he really should.
Yeah, he should. He's not. It's like he's not the best promoter in that sense. You know,
Right.
like he never really talks about. Like he talks about Dr. Drew all the time,
Uh-huh.
but he never really says, "I do a podcast with Dr. Drew called the Adam and Drew Show."
Yeah,
that you
unless
should
he's
listen to
asking
5
Gary
days a
which
week.
show whatever they talked about was on. But you're right, he doesn't.
It's weird because he kind of feels like the Adam Carolla audience has been around with him for so long, and I would say 90% of them have been.
Right.
That he just assumes they all know this stuff. But I think the idea of podcasting is, because podcasting is new, is to tell the world about these other shows and stuff like that you're doing. Or like your show, like I loved it. I love the way you did it. Like, this is the podcasting world that we live in. You just like hit up a bunch of guys on Twitter and be like, hey, doing a podcast.
Right. I mean,
do you want to do it? And what I love about guys podcasting, nobody's like, hey man, where's your show and how do you distribute and how many listeners do you have and all this? Like, who cares?
Occasionally somebody will ask that, but
yeah,
if they
somebody's
start
publicist.
to go down that road, then they're not going to do it anyway, I've noticed.
Yeah.
And a publicist and a manager, I've never, ever, ever been able to book any guest on my other podcast through those people, like through an agent or a publicist. They ask a lot of questions and it ends up being a no all the time. Everybody I've ever booked is with the actual people. Well,
that's the way it is. Like, especially in the Hollywood world, the publicist is there to say no for some reason.
They're the goalie.
I don't know why. Yeah, they're just a gatekeeper, and they never say yes to anything. Like they just don't. Adam Carolla has been friends with Patrick Dempsey for years and years and years. They were neighbors. They would hang out together. They went to Home Depot together. If you're an Adam Carolla fan, I'm sure you've heard the story, right? Well, Adam and I have run into Patrick Dempsey at racing events, and we've talked to him, and we've recorded a few things with him. But on the side, I've been asking like his publicist for 6 years about officially booking him on the show, and said, hey, Adam and Patrick are friends. Patrick said he wants to come by the house and see all the cars. She's never booked it. It just doesn't make sense for her. She's like, this does nothing for his career. I was like, how about it's fun? And he said he wanted to do it. She didn't give a shit. Right. Or he or whoever. I forgot who. But and I don't know if that's the same publicist or whenever, but it's just an example of all they're just there just to say no. I don't know. Maybe it's a power play.
I think it has to be, right? They're trying to I guess they have to do something to earn their paycheck, or they're going to get let go, and so they just have to tell everybody no. I guess.
I don't know what it is, but it seemed like she didn't even ever ask, or he never asked. Like, nobody ever asked about it.
I'm sure if you talk to him about it the next time, he'll be like, what are you talking about?
I was sitting on the 101 freeway here in LA and sitting in traffic, and I pulled up next to Patrick Dempsey.
Really?
And he was in like his Mercedes SLS Gullwing.
Okay.
I was test driving like a Porsche something or other at the time, and he rolls down his window. I roll down my window, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?"
So like he recognized you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, "Hey, nice car." He was like, "Hey, Matt."
But I just assumed like maybe he's looking at the car, so I was like, "Yeah, Matt, I host CarCast with Adam Carolla." And he's like, "Yeah, I remember." He didn't remember, but he kind of, like he recognized me, but didn't know from where, right? And then he's like, he's got to be somebody. It was a cool car. We're sitting in traffic. We're bored anyway. He rolls down his window, and I'm like, hey, man, you got to come in and do CarCast. And he literally said, yeah, and I want to come by the house and see the car collection. I was like, great. I'll reach out to your publicist. We'll make it happen. Now he probably thinks I'm a dick because I never did it. Like what I did. Right. Somebody said no.
That's crazy.
If she would have said, hey, man, you've got a request to do CarCast, he'd be like, yes. And I want to see the car collection. Right. I want to go by the house. Now he's probably wondering, how come I was never invited around the house?
You keep saying the house. I thought they were all at the studio.
Well, they were at the house before we built out the other studio.
Gotcha. Like when he had the Lamborghini in his
in
office.
Lake Hollywood, he had like the super garage is what he called it. And yeah, there was like a lift in there. The garage was below the house, I guess you could say. Yeah. The house is kind of built on a hill. Mm-hmm. So the house is on top of the garage, or part of the house is on top of the garage. Specifically, Adam's office is on top of the garage, but the garage isn't subterranean. Like the garage still has windows, and then above it is the office and has windows, and the floor kind of moves apart, and a lift pushes the car up in there on a platform.
You can see it in that movie,
Road Hard.
Road Hard, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a great like LA Times article or something that they came over and took great photos of it.
Yeah, that's where I was, because when I heard about it, because he talked about it on the show, eons ago when it was new or whatever, and I was scouring the internet looking for pictures because that sounded so badass. And whatever article I came across there was a lot of good pictures. It was so cool.
Yeah, those guys did a good job, and they made Adam wear a suit and everything. But yeah, Road Hard was filmed there.
That was when he first started doing the podcast, because he was doing it in that office. When he first...
Yeah, well, when he first started doing it, Adam actually had a warehouse in Glendale,
Right.
but it was just like a couple of cars in a woodworking area.
Okay.
And when he first started doing the podcast, it was in there, but it was in just like a couch in the front area. And then that studio, that building got built out to be the main studio.
Mm-hmm.
And
Carolla
you'll
one.
go over there. If you haven't been there yet, I know you're heading over there to talk to some of the other guys. There's some offices built out and some AV rooms and things like that. And there's a few cars in the back area, so you'll see that it still has kind of a garage feel to it in the back.
Okay.
But it's another
The
building
other
that
shop
he
with
got
all
a
the
few years
cars.
ago. Our documentary division is there. Nate Adams that runs the documentaries. I think you're going to
Chassis.
talk to him.
I am. Chassis
He runs
Media.
Chassis Media out of there, and all the documentaries are done out of there. Believe it or not, Road Hard, the feature film was done out of there. Our Paul Newman feature film was done out of there. The documentary, the 24-Hour War, which is Ford versus Ferrari, Le Mans in the 1960s, another car guy movie, was done out
I
of
own
there.
it.
Yeah, there you go.
I've kickstarted and Indiegogo'd everything that he's done in the last 10 years, so I'm all in.
Wow, thank you for that.
I bought several copies of both Winning the Racing Life of Paul Newman and the 24-Hour War, and I gave him that.
They're good, right?
They're great.
good. The
They're
Newman
really
film,
good.
you don't even need to be a car guy. Like, he's a good dude.
I'm not a car guy,
and like, you could enjoy the Newman film.
I'm not even a Newman guy. But it was just done so well that by the end I cared about cars and Newman. It was
Yeah.
a great story.
Yeah, it's funny because most films, they need like this arc. You need like, like that guy was a dick, or there was some drama and all kinds
Right.
of stuff. And then you watch the Newman film, you're like, he's just kind of a really nice guy. Like he's a pretty good dude.
It's what it seemed like.
And
Just seemed like he was a nice guy who enjoyed
the Newman's
driving.
Own thing, that big charity thing. He said, yeah, let's go ahead and do a charity thing. And then they came to him and they said, well, we want to put your face on the labels, like on the labels of the salad dressing. And that's when he decided, well, if my face is going to be on it, then it has to be 100% to charity. I don't even want like 10% or whatever, which they offered him initially. He's like, it's got to go to charity. And he said yes. And then it went on to raise like $500 million so far. And
And
he's
it's
like,
still going.
maybe I
It's
should have
going crazy
rethought
now,
that.
right?
It was like, maybe I should have taken a couple percentage points, And we're actually coming up on the 10-year anniversary of his death, I think next year.
Really?
2018. I think he died in 2008. So coming up on the 10-year anniversary of his death.
Wow. And in that time, Adam has really been working on getting all those cars, getting all of Paul's cars.
Yeah, we've got a nice collection of Paul Newman race cars. We have a bunch of guys, not a bunch, we have a handful of guys in-house that restore those cars and work on
Back
them and
to the
maintain
original,
them. And,
like the way they used to look.
yeah,
to be.
but a lot of them are race cars. They're almost entirely all race cars that Adam has. There's a couple of street car Paul Newman cars out there, but Paul Newman raced for 35 years or longer. And Adam maybe has 10 or 12 of Paul Newman's cars.
And a lot of them are little, right? Like B210s or whatever.
There's like a Datsun, there's a Datsun 200 SX, which
Okay.
is kind of the small Newman car.
Was
But there's
he
some
a-
bigger
was
ones.
He a small car, Paul Newman?
Paul Newman maybe 5'9"-ish.
Okay. And Adam's like 6'3" or 6'4".
Yeah, like
or something.
6'2", 6'2.5",
So he had to,
which is a thing, like
Yeah.
when we get those cars.
I'm sure, because it's not like you can reach down and move the seat back. Those are bolted in, right?
Yeah, well, some of them can be like you remove them and you move them back, but a lot of the race cars have a bulkhead behind the seat or a roll cage
There's no place
behind
to
the
move
seat,
it.
so you can only go about an inch. So what we have to do is when we get the cars is the steering shaft where the steering wheel is mounted. We take the steering wheel off, we cut that back about 4 inches, and then re-weld like a bung on there and mount the steering wheel. And then underneath, the pedals actually get cut out and moved back.
Really?
Yeah, so we try to give, so the dashboard is still closer to Adam, but the steering wheel and the pedals are deeper into the dash.
Wow.
But in a race car, like on your street car, they say these rules about being super, super close to like an airbag.
Right.
There's no airbag in a race car, right?
Right, yeah.
So Adam's belted in a 5-point harness, so he's not going to move anyway. So yeah, he's still always a little cramped in there, but you've seen him. He's kind of like a tall, lanky guy.
Mm-hmm.
He basically has like no muscle at all. He's got like arms like a chick, and he'll tell you that too.
Sure.
He's like, he's never lifted a weight in his life. He jump rope and shadow boxes, but he's never like lifted a weight for some reason. So he's a lanky guy.
Yeah.
So when he gets in the race car and his knees are up high and his elbows are sticking out, he can do it. Like he's pretty good at fitting into pretty much any car. Like I'm a tiny dude, so I can fit into any car.
So you actually are part of the, like you get down and get greasy and get all buck wild?
Well, there's a fabricator and a mechanic in-house. What I do with Adam is a little bit more like Adam and I sort of plan his car strategy. And
like mapping out how what you're going to do to change this car?
Not just what we're going to do to the car, but what cars we're going to buy.
Oh, really?
So sort of like curator of the collection.
Okay.
And all the buying and selling kind of goes through me, or Adam and I do together. Like we talk pretty much every day about the car collection. And sort of by design, like I've been working with Adam 8 years in June, 8 years last month.
Okay. And
doing podcasting and stuff, but really it's just the car collection. And from there, we took $80,000 and $100,000 cars and then grew it to $500,000 cars, to $1 million cars, to $2 million cars. And the most recent one is about $5 million, but that is the holy grail of Paul Newman race cars.
So that one, he won his division in Le Mans?
Paul Newman raced at Le Mans, which is the big famous race. And
where is that?
France.
France.
Paul Newman raced it in 1979. It's a Porsche 935. And he won first in his class and second overall. There's several types of cars that race at Le Mans. Okay. And it's a 24-hour race. All day, all night, you race. There's 3 drivers.
Are we doing all right?
I think we're doing okay. Do you want another beer, or are you good for now?
We're good for now. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's the beauty of podcasting in the middle of a
Yeah.
hotel.
That's right.
You get a cocktail, you get some ambient music, you get a
Yeah.
beach out the window. Welcome to California,
Yeah,
by the
no
way.
kidding.
Yeah.
California.
California. I'm sipping my beer. Okay, 1979, Paul Newman and 2 other drivers, they go to Le Mans and they win first in their class and second overall. So Paul Newman's only time out there, he wins Le Mans.
That's
And
the only time he went out?
He was the only time he went out. The paparazzi were so sort of ruthless out there. He's
Is
just
that why
like,
he
it's
didn't go
just
back?
too much for him.
Oh,
He didn't really
sucks.
like that. And the rules back then were like, people were allowed to just get in the pits. Like there was one point during the 24-hour race where he was in the car and he was supposed to head out into the track, but there were so many people around the car, he had to basically drive through them and make them, by the way, when people are taking pictures and trying to shuffle out of the way, he didn't run them over, but every second it takes for those people to move out of the way cuts into his time. Now the rules have drastically changed. It's unsafe. You can't do that. But that kind of burnt him on that, so he didn't do it
Made
again.
it not worth it. I
Yeah,
guess.
but this is,
that
first of all, the
sucks.
Porsche 935 is an awesome car.
It was an Apple car, right?
And yeah, so this particular car went on to have one of the most amazing racing careers of any Porsche 935. Bobby Rahal, famous driver, famous team owner, owns a bunch of car dealers. His son, Graham Rahal, races Indy, and he's fantastic. Bobby Rahal raced Paul Newman's 935 later in Daytona and Sebring and Watkins Glen, all these amazing races, and it did really well at a lot of these. So when Paul Newman raced it, the car was red, and the sponsor was Hawaiian Tropic. And then when Bobby Rahal raced it, it was white and had the Apple computer livery on it, but the old Apple logo
old
with
one,
the
right?
stripes.
Gotcha, like from the 80s.
Yeah, with the rainbow colors in it. So it's arguably like the winningest or the most raced Porsche 935 ever. So Adam and I had this 5-month strategy about how to buy this car.
Oh, so y'all knew it was coming
Oh yeah,
up.
we knew it was coming up. It was going up to auction. It was at Monterey Car Week 2016, so last year. We're going to be going again in a month. Last year went up there. We knew the car was going up. We knew we wanted it. We've been eyeing on it. When we did the film, we watched. We're like, where can we get this car? Somebody in Europe owned it. It wasn't for sale. It finally came up for sale, and we're like, we need to do whatever we can to try to buy this car. And it comes down to a lot of things. It's like, first of all, writing a $5 million check for a car is not easy.
Right.
You know, so you got to think about where the money's going to come from, and do we have to sell some cars, and how do we do it? And
So did y'all take cars to that same show to sell?
we didn't sell cars at that event.
Okay.
We sold cars after that event because we
Was
weren't
there-
sure if we were going to get it or not. So we went there
So
to
he
the
didn't want to sell his car and then not be able to get the other car.
Yeah,
Okay.
but this was all sort of by design. Like, there were certain cars in Adam's collection that were his investment cars. These are cars that we
5 of them,
bought.
right?
Yeah, there was roughly 5 of them or so. There's more in there, but there's like 5 that we considered cars that we could buy years ago at a good price, will increase in value. We could flip them, make some good money, and get the next car that we want. So
Right.
every car that we've ever sold in the car collection, that has been reinvested into the car collection to
Gotcha.
just bigger and better, more rare cars. The car collection now is mostly all one-of-one cars. You know, it used to be like
really?
Adam had, Adam would have 3 Lamborghini Miras. Well, there's 700 Miras made and 150 Mira SVs.
Right.
So we're like, okay, we could sell 2 Lamborghini Miras to buy the one-of-one Paul Newman race car, you know? So, Gooding and Company was the auction in Monterey. We went there. Adam was kind of off to the side having a cocktail, being a little nervous.
Because he was so wanting that
And
car.
I went and bid on it for him. So I went with my friend Brad Fanshaw that I host Shift and Steer with. Brad and I were there, and we were with one of the people from the Gooding auction. When you're spending that much money, there's a guy assigned to
Yeah,
you. You know what I'm saying?
should
Like,
be,
you're
right.
just not in a room like waving your paddle like, hey, look at me, look at me. Like, there's a guy assigned to you, and you have like your own little area, because they knew we wanted the car. Like, that's part of, like, these auctions are kind of, they're very well planned, you know? So if you're going to sell a car at an auction and you're asking $1 million, $2 million, 14 million, 20 million,
Right.
their job is to get the right people in the room,
Right.
right? So they knew we wanted this car. So when we walked in, we're like, here, do you want to come and look at the car 2 days in advance? Do you have any questions? We sat down with them, we looked at the car, we went through all the documentation, the photos, the files, all of this before we even purchased
And
the
it's
car.
bins and bins of documentation.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff, which is great. You love that
It's such
documentation.
a storied car.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, but
But the auction, by the
sure,
way,
not
goes
everybody-
super fast.
Oh, really?
Like, it was going quick, and it went up to, I don't know, 2.6 or 2.8 million before I even raised my paddle for the first time, before I even like jumped in. And the morning of the auction, Adam and I were up super early in Monterey, walking like through the marina area, just early in the morning. You know, it's nice, cool weather. You know, it's got kind of an overcast, and we're walking, there's nobody out there. We're like, what's the strategy? The strategy was like, Adam's like, look, you know, the car is going to be somewhere between 4 and 6 million.
So y'all knew that going in.
You know, we knew that going in.
Okay.
There's estimates about the car. We knew it'd be 4 and 6 million. We kind of had certain limits on where we would go. And then at some point, Adam's like, look, when we hit this certain number, he's like, it's your call. It's up to you. He's like, you play it by ear. If you think it's going too fast, get out. If you think it's going slow and we think we can buy it, then get it. So Adam's like, I'd like to get the car for around 5
he
million.
must really trust you if he said at a certain point it's up to you.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's really cool.
Yes, I think he does, and I have a lot of respect for that.
$2 million before you even.
It got to like at least 2.6 before I even jumped in. And at one point, the guy from the auction was like, you better get in there. I'm like, how about you just let me do my thing? And like, I didn't know. No. So we got in there, we bought the car. The hammer price was actually 4.4 million, which was
But then there's like a.
a little lower than the max of our strategy. So we felt
Right.
like it was well bought. Then there's a 10% buyer's premium. So
On
it was
every car,
4.84
every
million. And then by the time you buy the car and you pay taxes on the car, you're easily at 5 million on the car. And now we have a $5 million Porsche.
I guess this is a stupid question, but you said pay taxes, so there's sales tax on an auction?
Yeah.
Wow, holy shit.
Yeah, when you like, it varies from state to state, but when you still got to register. Well, it's a race car, so you don't have to get it registered. You know, there's no license plates for it, but you got to pay taxes on the transaction.
Wow. That is nuts. You know, I used to wonder why, like, because Adam is always in a lease, like his everyday car. I don't know if it still is, but you know, for a long time he was just driving leases, and I would always wonder why he doesn't drive his Aston Martins or DB9s or whatever, right?
Yeah, he's got one.
Or you know, like why he doesn't drive all these badass cars. But now that I've gotten here, y'all's streets are ridiculously shit.
Yeah.
The streets in this town
there's
are
tons of traffic. But Adam's big thing is he actually doesn't like to drive flashy cars.
Why?
He doesn't like to just be seen in a flashy
Because people
car.
will look and...
I don't know. He just doesn't like that
Because he's
attention.
not good at marketing himself.
Yeah, that's it. Like, he's just, for a guy who likes to talk about himself, he's not good at marketing himself.
That's funny.
You know. Anyway, so we have this $5 million Porsche.
So
And now we're
you're
gonna race
doing all
it.
this, and he's sitting over in a room just nervous as all get
No,
out.
he's in the room. I can see him. He's on the other side.
Okay.
He's on the other side in like a VIP area having a cocktail.
So he's watching everything.
He's watching.
He's just sitting back and letting you handle the dirty
Yeah.
stuff. Wow, that's awesome. So when you finally, when the hammer hit and you got it, did you look over at him and he was just like pissing himself?
He came over, gave me a big hug. We said congratulations, and then Gooding showed up with a bottle of champagne for us, and we got this
blowjob?
car. But every article that I saw, at least every article that came out. By the way, there's hundreds and hundreds of cars that get traded at Monterey Car Week. Right? There's several auctions. There's a lot going on.
It's a big deal.
And some of these cars are 14 million, 18 million, 23 million. Every list that I saw listed that Paul Newman race car as one of the top 10 coolest cars in Monterey. So we got that car. And Monterey's coming up in August, mid-August. We've had the car race prepped, and Adam's going to race it.
Yeah. So I know that you're probably still reeling from having to come up with $5 million, but is there anything coming up in this auction that y'all got your eye on to buy or sell? You're all going to take cars to sell?
Yes. We have our eye on a car we'd like to buy. And
Is it a Paul Newman car?
It is not.
Okay.
And we have our eye on one of the cars we'd like to sell.
Oh, cool.
The car we'd like to buy, I don't think is that relevant. It's a race car that we kind of like. It's more for fun.
Sure. More that he would actually race it?
Yeah, it's a little bit more of like, Adam had such a great time racing in this Trans Am race he did, his first modern day professional race.
With
He
the
does a lot of
Corvettes,
vintage
right?
racing, and he raced this C7 Corvette. He had such a great time that now he's got kind of a bug about maybe he should get a more modern race car.
Oh, really?
And
'cause I
do
guess that
more
makes sense,
practice
Because he's racing
stuff.
cars from the 70s.
Yeah, some from the 60s, some from the 80s, you know.
So to get into, what was it, a 2016, 17 CJ?
Yeah. It's roughly around
Right,
that. I mean,
it's a new
it's a
car.
race car, so it's a
Right.
big tube frame chassis. It's got a
Sure.
special body on it and all this stuff like that. But it's a pretty new race car, and it's got a lot of modern technology and digital dash and all this stuff.
Is that the most horsepower he's raced?
Yes, that was the fastest car he's ever
It was
raced.
like probably 153 horsepower, right? 153?
Oh, it's 850
Oh, yeah, I was
horsepower.
close.
Yeah, you're like right there though. You're right on there. 850 horsepower. And he raced it at Willow Springs, which is a track out here in California. It's about an hour and a half out of LA. And it's not all about top speed, because top speed is, if the track has a lot of turns and stuff, your top speed is lower.
Right.
This track does have a nice little straightaway, and I think Adam hit maybe 162 miles an hour. But you keep in mind that at the end of that straightaway, there's a 90-degree turn.
Stop. Wow.
So you hit 162 miles an hour, you got to get on the brakes hard, you got to turn left and keep control. You know,
So we had a lot of fun.
yeah, so he did that. One of the cars we're thinking about selling, which I can talk about, because we want to sell it and we like it when people buy stuff that we sell.
Is it one of the 5 that he's been trying to sell since?
No,
No, it's not.
no, most of those are pretty much done.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think I've pretty much sold all of those already.
I was trying to get him to sell, to put those cars on shirts to kind of help fund this thing. I was trying to get him to, because I think that,
Yeah, just put a t-shirt with 5 pictures of Lamborghinis on there and be like,
No.
for sale by owner.
well, that'd be funny. But I was just trying to get him to, just sell to his audience 5 different shirts, one shirt for each one of those badass cars, because those were beautiful cars.
They are beautiful cars, but it's kind of a douchey rich guy move to be like, I need to sell T-shirts to pay for my $5 million Paul Newman car. He's not going to do that.
Yeah.
I guess like the crowdfunding for the films and stuff like that are different because that's a lot of giving back. Like you get to see the film. There's like live shows and tickets and crowdfunding, all these benefits and all cool stuff. But if it's just like I'm going to sell a car and you're going to buy T-shirts so I can buy myself another car, he's not going to do that.
One of the Kickstarter
he's funny, but he's not a douche.
One of the Kickstarter things that he did, he like made a little video and sent it on a little flash drive, and it was basically just like a video of him. I don't remember which movie it was, but it was a video of him just going to like all of his old, like his, the house he grew up in, and just that was really cool. Like, I like doing those Kickstarter funding, those crowdfunding things, because just because you get little shit like that. I mean, when are you ever gonna get this dude to give you a personal tour of where he grew up and all that shit like that? This is really cool.
He's good about that stuff, and he's pretty creative with that kind of stuff too. Like, I'll tell you, the thing about Adam is Adam's had success on radio and creating this character and stuff, but what a lot of people don't realize is he studied at the Groundlings. He studied comedy. He put the time in. He put the effort in. He didn't fall into this. He worked hard for it. And I didn't know that when I started working with him. I had listened to him on the radio. It's like, this is a funny guy. I like this guy. But I didn't know the work that he put in it. And I had so much respect after learning that.
Really?
The work that he put in, and I still see what he puts in. And I can honestly tell you, over the years, 8 years of working with Adam, there's so many funny guys and great comedians and actors and all that come in, but hands down, Carolla is the best improv guy out there.
He is so off the cuff.
If you're going to do a show 5 days a week, okay, that's just the Adam Carolla show. I'm not talking about Adam and Drew 5 days a week and CarCast once a week and Ace on the House once a week and Reasonable Doubt. I'm just 5 days a week on the Adam Carolla show. He has to bring it, and he gets in there and he gets handed some notes like, here's your ads, and that's pretty much it. But he's done live shows, and another famous comedian, very successful. I'm not sure if it's right to say names because the guy told me in confidence, but
well, then don't, for sure.
But the guy did a live show with Adam, and when he was done, he came back and sat down. We had a drink together, and he said, I love doing these shows with Adam. And he goes, but there's so much work. He goes, because Adam is such a great improv guy. He goes, he makes the rest of us try to be better comedians. He goes, look, my comedy show, my HBO show, my tour that I do, he goes, it took me a year to write that, flush it out, and really get it tight. And he goes, and then here, I'll do 45 minutes with Adam, 40 minutes on a stage with Adam for a live ACS show. And he goes, and that guy makes me work harder than that. He's like, and he goes, and it's so much fun. It makes me think about what it's like to be a young comedian, just taking improv classes and learning this stuff. And he goes, and I love it. He goes, it's not easy, but I love it. He's like, it's tough for any comedian of any level to keep up with Adam in a live capacity. Right. Now, keep in mind, Adam does this all the time, so it's sort of second nature for him.
If anybody has 10,000 hours, it's this dude.
Yeah. And anyway, I just have a lot of respect for the amount of time and effort he's put into doing what he does. And when he's off, like we were out the other day filming we did like 3 days filming this Forza Motorsport commercial. I love the guys at Forza Motorsport. The commercial is going to be great.
Forza?
Forza. It's a big video game from Microsoft and Xbox.
Oh, it's kind of, I guess.
It's a racing game.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's like the biggest game on the planet or something like that, or one of the biggest racing games. It's cool. We love the guys from Forza. They were great. They invited us to be a part of this thing. I'm not in it. Adam's in it. But we went out there every day. We went out to a racetrack, and it was just hot. It was like 110 degrees every day. And the asphalt, we had a laser thermometer. The asphalt was like 154 degrees. Like, it's just so hot out there. And it's like 5:30 in the morning to 5:30 at night. And Adam had to go out and do a live show in Oxnard. And he's like, mentally, he's like, I'm off my game a little bit. And he goes, but nobody in the audience cares about that excuse.
Right.
He can't go up on stage and go, hey, forgive me, I've been out doing this commercial, but standing on a hot track, with an umbrella above my head or whatever for the last 10 hours. I'm going to be off. Because everyone's going to be like, well, that sucks because I just paid a bunch of money and I'm expecting you to be funny and awesome.
Right.
So there's you got to go and you got to be awesome. And, and the show went great. But the next day, Adam felt like, he's like, I don't feel like I was quite as quick as I normally am. And he felt bad because he felt like he didn't give 100%. He felt like people expected something from him and he couldn't give it all. Now, nobody noticed and everybody thought the show was great, and the guests that were on there, which are great, funny guys, they had a great time and it was a killer show, but still in the back of his mind, he's like, it wasn't perfect. But he went, he did it. He just, there's no, I'm not going to do it kind of thing. That's not an option.
So, shifting gears for a bit, what brought you to California?
So I was in Florida for high school, finished high school, graduated. Yes. Good job. And went out to Arizona, started going to school out there and hooked up with a friend of mine named Adam Pizzoni. His mom was our preschool teacher when we were like 5, so I've known him forever.
Yeah.
And about a year into school, the internet had been around for quite some time, but the World Wide Web, right, was new. Netscape was brand new web browser. Like, we were in the school library and it was like Netscape version, it wasn't even version 1. It was like 0.96. This is 1994. And we were doing research on the internet and stuff like that. And my friend Adam's kind of a techie guy, super smart, computer nerd. And then some friends of mine, the guys we met in school, the guy was selling t-shirts made out of hemp.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. And he's like, how do I tell people about this? How do I market people?
How do I get the word out?
And I was like, let's try this World Wide Web thing, right? Like, back in the 90s, people called it the web, not the internet, but now it's because the nerds and us all like the internet's been around for a long time, bulletin boards, things like that. Anyway, we built a website.
So did they call it the web because it was like a spider web of destinations?
Yeah, like, and then when you go to, now it's www.carcashshow.com. That's World Wide Web, gotcha. Right? That's the www, which, so we built this guy a website for his hemp t-shirts and marketed his hemp t-shirts. So and he sold a few. And we're like, we like this.
How did y'all know how to build a website back in the 90s?
We didn't. Nobody did. So you just learn. Like, you just go and you do it. And I did a lot of the design, and my buddy Adam did all the programming. That's just who he is.
That had to take a lot of time. You're a good friend to help your buddy out. Because that sounds, even nowadays,
we wanted to try
with all the shortcuts, it's a lot of time.
Yeah.
So,
well, back then everything was done by hand. It was all done by scratch. There was no, there was no.
Were you writing code and stuff like that? Oh,
yeah,
Lord.
Yeah. Adam mostly was.
Wow.
I wasn't doing that so much. Anyway, we liked it and we thought we could turn it into a business. So we moved out to California to start a web development company. We moved out in December.
So y'all liked it so much and y'all thought you did such a good job with the t-shirt website that y'all were like, let's give this a go.
Yeah, but we were insane. We didn't know what we were doing. We were 19 years old. We built one website and we're like, let's do this for everybody.
Oh, cool.
And
so y'all started a company where y'all would build websites for people?
Yes.
Okay.
So we moved out to California in December of 1995. We tried to get some office space right here in Santa Monica. And at the time, like being like a young business owner, it's not like now, like you could be 7 years old. You say you have an internet company, people are like, you must be a genius. I'm going to give you a bunch of money. Back then, we're like, we just need to rent some office space. So like, come on, you're 19, you're too stupid to rent off. Like, they're like, come back with your dad.
Right.
Anyway, we were able to put something together and build a couple websites and impress some people and raise some money. And we ended up building a nice little company out of it. And we built
Can you say what the name of it was?
It started off, it was called Cyber Nation, and then we just sort of shortened it to C Nation. We built websites for a lot of the car companies, Honda and Nissan and Toyota and Kia. And
How did you get those? How did you get in those rooms to sell
yeah, that was not easy.
Because I mean, if you can't even rent office space without people thinking
Yeah.
you're just a dumb kid, how do you get
I'll
in
tell
these
you,
rooms?
you know, we also work for like every major video game. We work for Capcom and Konami and Sendit Software and Activision. We built websites for Resident Evil and Street Fighter and
Wow.
World's Scariest Police Chases. We built the Simpsons. We built the first ever Simpsons website
Whoa.
for you know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and all,
Really?
like all this stuff. Yeah, and so in our world,
Did you get to meet Joss Whedon?
No.
No.
We worked with Fox Interactive.
Gotcha.
But fun fact, the Fox building, their corporate office here in LA, and where Fox Interactive is located, is in the building that was Nakatomi Plaza in Die Hard.
Shut up, really?
So when I first came out here and they're like, come meet with us, here's the address. We drove by, I'm like, that's Nakatomi Plaza, that's Die Hard.
That's so cool.
So we went up like to the top of the building and we're like, we're in the Die Hard building.
Were you up there where you just go on the roof and just
Yeah,
start
we totally
shouting,
were.
"Yippee-ki-yay"?
Yeah, it was fun to do. We were young, we were silly, and
That's awesome.
so in the world of like advertising, okay, if you're a big advertising agency and you have, let's say, Nissan as a client, then you don't have any other automotive clients.
Right.
Right.
I saw Mad Men.
Right. There you go.
They had
in
to
the-
get rid of Jaguar so they could get GM.
There you go. In the early days of the internet space, it was the exact opposite. So we worked with an ad agency and we did work for Honda. And then that work led to Nissan and led to Toyota and led to whatever.
Interesting.
And then we built, one of the first game sites we built was with Capcom. And the way that happened was I started talking a lot about web development. And then somebody from Wired magazine heard about it and was going to do an article on us.
Okay, would you like another beer?
You want another beer?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Somebody from Wired magazine heard about it. And then we had a really nice conversation with this lovely woman, I forgot her name, from Wired magazine. And the article ended up not getting published. But
Yeah, which
she put
happens.
us in touch with somebody from Capcom. Capcom is the video game company that does Resident Evil and Dino Crisis and Street Fighter and Mega Man and so many games.
Huge company.
Yeah. So they hired us to build some
she
first
put you in touch
websites.
with those people because she felt bad that the article
No,
didn't
she
come
just
out?
liked us. We had a great conversation.
cool.
And she was friends with another woman who was like the marketing director of Capcom, and they were getting into the web side of things. So like, we're a video game, we feel like this is where we need to be. Again, not a lot of websites back then, very, very few. And we ended up building websites for some of these video games. And then at one point down the road, Activision was like, hey, we need to have a website. You know, we need a cool website. And in the meeting, somebody had the Capcom website up on the screen, and somebody said, well, who built that one? And down on the bottom was like our name. We're like, website built by, us. So we did that, and then we got a call, and then we met with them, they liked us, and it was, so much was word of mouth back then. So if you had one video game company, you can get the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. If you had one automotive company, you'd get another one, another one.
So it was a Me Too mentality.
Yeah, and it worked out well for us. And then as things sort of shifted,
How many people? So you started with 2 people, 3
yeah,
people?
3.
3?
Myself, Adam Pizzoni, and his brother, David Pizzoni.
And then how big did y'all get? How many people?
About 30 people.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot of people. Did y'all have to get more office space?
Yes. We started off at a little, like 644 square feet here in Santa Monica.
Not much bigger than
Then pretty much what
this
we're
booth
sitting
we're
like,
sitting
yeah,
in,
we're
yeah.
sitting like in a booth in a hotel, and that's pretty much about the size of it. There was no walls or cubicles. We just bought like some $99 desks and just jammed them all up next to each other.
Sure.
And just started going at it. Just started building it up, and then that building was 12 floors, and we moved to. We have offices scattered on 6 of the 12 floors.
Really?
And then
you just take a little space here.
Little space there, little space there.
Because they didn't have anything real big, so you just kind of cool.
So there was a lot of up and down the elevator, a lot of stairs. I felt like I was much healthier back then. Maybe it was the stairs, maybe it was because I was 22, and And then we ended up building an office. Samuel Goldwyn from the Goldwyn film.
From Metro Goldwyn?
Yes. Legacy,
GM,
big legacy there. Sam Goldwyn owned a production company. His son, Tony Goldwyn, is a super famous actor, director.
Okay.
And he had a 3-story building in Beverly Hills, and he was on the top floor, and we took the 2 other floors. So we built this really cool office. It was 2 levels, and we had 2 conference rooms stacked on top of each other, all in glass. And you go up these stairs and cross a little bridge to get to the second conference room. And
that sounds
it was
dope.
It was badass. It was so dope, man. I love that
really
office.
Cool.
Yeah, and here we are, just young guys, barely, not even 30 yet. We're check out our dope office.
That's awesome.
Anyway, eventually the internet bubble kind of burst, and a lot of the big .coms were kind of going. One of our big clients was eToys, and that company was making money hand over fist, and then it was just gone.
That's so crazy the way that all happened.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and stop it right there for this week. It was a wonderful conversation with Matt. I got to tell you, man, I felt like we were just old friends hanging out, chit-chatting. That's why this is such a long and lovely episode. So come back next week, and we'll have part 2 of Matt Motorator DeAndrea.
Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.